Hey guitar enthusiasts, I get asked all the time, Lauren, what are the best strumming patterns for beginners to use when they first start learning to play guitar? So I'm going to show you the patterns that I show my students, but not only that, I'm going to show you how we can work on your timing, which is one of the most important parts of being a good guitar player. So before I show you some strumming patterns that I would show my beginner students, I am going to show you 3 different types of notes that we're going to be using in these rhythms. And it's very important to understand these because they're the foundation for most of the rhythm patterns you're going to learn on your guitar. So the first note I want you to be aware of is a circle. It looks like a donut. We call this a whole note in music, and what that means is it's 4 beats. Now, what is a beat? It's what you tap your foot to, but it's just a time relation. So think of it in terms of seconds. A lot of people understand that. So think of a whole note as 4 seconds. Now, it could be more than 4 seconds or shorter, but for simplicity's sake, just think of it as 4 clicks on a clock. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so if we were to play a chord, let's take an E minor chord since that's an easy one for most students to play. Okay, I like to do mine with my first and second fingers, but if you do yours with your second and third, it's perfectly acceptable too. And if we use this whole note pattern, this is the first strumming pattern that I teach beginner students because usually in the beginning, your chord changes aren't very fast, right? So you have to build up the speed on your chord changes. So we start with what we call, this is whole note strumming. It's the first strumming pattern I show all students, and we just strum the guitar and we count to 4. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's a whole note strumming pattern, and what it does, say you're changing into a chord like a C chord, it gives you enough time to strum 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Gives you enough time to get between the chords. The other reason I do this for students is because we start working on timing right away. You strum on 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I always tell students it's better to play less strumming in the beginning and stay in time with the music than do a really complicated strumming pattern and have a bunch of pauses. For example, something like this. Now, if you feel like that's how your playing sounds right now, my recommendation would be to either take this first strumming pattern or one of the ones I'm going to show you in a second here and simplify the strumming so that you give your hands enough time to change to the next chord. All right, so that was symbol number 1. Symbol number 2 is going to be the quarter note. Okay, so think of it like a dollar bill if you're in the US, and a dollar bill has 4 quarters. Or you can think of it as a pie, all right? If you cut a pie in fourths, you would have 4 pieces, right? So these are going to be counted 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you notice it's the same as the whole note? Okay, that's great, because a whole note, you strum once and you hold for 4 counts. With a quarter note, we are going to strum for every single quarter. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very simple, but again, we're working on timing. So we would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you might say, oh, you know, Lauren, my C chord it's just still not quite up to speed yet on that 4th down strum. I feel like I'm rushing to get to the next chord. What you can do is you can put in what we call a rest, where you don't strum on that 4th beat. You just go 1, 2, 3, and then it gives you that extra quarter note to change the chord, okay? So that's perfectly acceptable. Again, it's much better to stay in time with the song than have big pauses. So if you're going, I would rather you go, get rid of that one strum just to give you a little extra time to get to that next chord. So there you go. Those are 2 more strumming options for absolute beginners as you're building up your chord change speed. Now, eventually students say, Lauren, you know, I've been doing the whole note strumming, I've been doing the quarter note strumming, and it doesn't sound that exciting. When do I start getting to do up strums on guitar? So up strums require us to understand what an 8th note is. That's our 3rd rhythm notation. I guess we learned 4 because you learned what a quarter note rest was, but this is our 3rd one. It's called the 8th note. Okay, so if we took our pie that was in 4 pieces and we cut those 4 pieces in half again, we'd have 8 slices of pie, and that's what happens in music. When you take a quarter note and you split it in half, you get 2 eighth notes, or 8 notes over an entire measure, and those are counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now what I do for students, because everyone's usually pretty good at down strums, they might have to work on their timing a little bit, but all of a sudden everyone gets to doing up strums and like they feel like their hand is spasming. It's because there's probably a lot of muscle tension. You do have to relax when you're strumming. And this comes into play more on the up strums versus the down strums. But I just want to let you guys know, and on a little secret here. Okay, when we go back to our quarter note strumming, watch my strumming hand. Watch what happens. All right, even though I'm only strumming the downs, what happens to my hand? It has to come back up, right? You've already been doing up strums, you just haven't been hitting the strings on the way up. And for some reason, that's a big disconnect for like the muscles. Most people, when they start doing up strums, it sounds like this. You know, and they're grabbing the strings, and oftentimes students ask me, you know, when they're doing the up strums, those bottom strings sound very tinny and rough. You may want to go to a thinner pick. All right, a lot of times students, this pick I'm using here is a medium pick. All right, I think this one's like 0.73. I would recommend going to maybe a 0.5 millimeter or even a 0.6 millimeter, something with a little bit more flexibility. It'll take a little bit of that curse out on these up strums for you. So when we're doing this next pattern, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna throw in 1 up strum. I start students with 1 up strum, and just getting it, building it into the mechanics of the rhythms that we've already learned. But this strumming pattern will work for a lot of songs. So it's going to start like this. We'll go back to that E minor chord, and it's just gonna be 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's it, just 1 strum, 1 up strum between 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? Play down, 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 up, down. Okay, so that gives you an opportunity to work on 1 up strum. Also, you notice I didn't put an up strum after the 4, because if we have an up strum after the 4, it means your chord changes need to be even faster than they are. The more strumming you do, the faster your chord changes need to be. So that's something to keep in mind when you're a beginner and you're trying to do strumming, is you have to match your strumming to the level you're at. And that's what I do in my 7-level guitar system, the course, my beginner course. And we build on things just like this, 1 layer at a time, 1 step at a time, that, you know, you start at the very beginner levels and then we build up. And eventually, once your chord changes become fast enough, you could add in 2 up strums. And this is a very, very popular beginner guitar strumming pattern that works for a lot of songs. Actually, if you watch a lot of my beginner songs, you'll see I use this pattern quite frequently because it sounds really nice and it works well for a lot of songs. So that would be adding 2 up strums. So the last one, once you get that down, just a single up strum. Now we're gonna add 2 up strums. Let's go back to that E minor chord. This one's gonna be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and play down, 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 up, down, up. So we got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Now that you've learned some fun beginner strumming patterns, I highly recommend you go check out my beginner song playlist over there, where you can start applying some of these patterns to fun songs. I'll see you guys over in that playlist.